Hi, everybody. My name is Rachel Kai from Maven. Welcome to our panel about preparing for AI in 2024. So Maven is where leaders from top companies in tech and business teach live courses. As an example, two of our panelists today have courses on Maven that are open for enrollment right now. Marilee teaches building AI products for PMs on how to bring AI products to life. Elvis here teaches prompt engineering for LLMs, where you can learn to build and explore large language models. You'll hear a bit more from these folks today. And so we are joined today by Pete Huang. He's the co-founder of the Neuron newsletter, read by over 150,000 people, which is amazing. I'm going to pass the mic to Pete.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Rachel. And hi, everyone. Welcome to the session. My name is Pete. Again, I'm the co-founder of the Neuron. We run a newsletter to keep track of everything that's going on in AI. And wouldn't you believe it, it's almost the end of the year. This year has been absolutely wild in the world of AI. So it's kind of shocking to me that we're getting the chance to look ahead into 2024 and what to expect in the next year, even though it seems perhaps a little bit difficult to predict, and how you can prepare yourself in your career today in the workplace. And we're going to be diving into some of these topics with three amazing AI experts. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves now. Marilee, if you can kick us off, we'd love to hear more about you.
Sounds good. Hi, everyone. I'm very, very excited to be here. I'm Marilee Nika. I am originally Greek. I'm based in the Bay Area. I actually was doing AI before it was cool. I did a PhD in machine learning back in 2011, and I've just fallen in love with it since. I ended up joining Google in 2013, and I was building AI products for 10 years. I was a part of the Google Assistant. I launched Voice Match on Google Home devices, and then I was working on Google's new AR glass. But 2 years before now, I moved over to Meta's Reality Labs, where I work on avatars and identity. So anything that has to do with how we embody ourselves within the metaverse. And on the side, of course, I teach on Maven, and I also a newsletter, not nearly as big as Neuron, but I'm very excited about this creator economy that AI has been empowering.
Amazing. Logan and Elvis, we'll go to you next.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me. I'm Logan Kilpatrick. I lead developer relations at OpenAI. Really focused on helping developers build with our API, build ChatGPT plugins. Yeah, was at one point a machine learning engineer at Apple, so spent a little bit of time doing machine learning stuff, and now get to help people not have to worry about all the complexity of machine learning and get to leverage state-of-the-art machine learning, large language models, and all the other stuff that we're doing today. So I already see a bunch of the questions coming into the Q&A, so hopefully we'll be able to answer some of those. But yeah, I'm sure people will have all the tough questions that I probably can't answer.
Thanks, Logan. And then Elvis.
Hi, everyone. Great to see you all here, and thanks for joining us today. This is going to be a really exciting conversation, and I cannot wait for some of the questions. I have been in the space for almost over a decade now. Specifically, I've been focused on NLP. So I've been, like Marilyn, around quite a while in the space before large language models were cool. And it has been really great and fascinating to see how this technology has grown and how it has developed, and also the participation from different companies like startups and so on. So something I'm working on right now is helping with enablement, like helping AI startups, consulting with smaller companies on how they can leverage this technology. So hopefully we'll get some questions around that and be able to provide some insights that I'm noticing. So great to see you all.
Thank you so much, Elvis. And obviously, you can see that this group is knee deep. Is just the start of it. They've been doing AI since again before it was cool, like Marilee was saying. So I really want to start off with the heavy hitter of the question, right? So obviously, you're all three of you at the forefront of the field, and of course, without sharing anything confidential. Specifically, perhaps for you, Logan, I think a lot of the questions are a lot of interest in OpenAI products right now. What do you all foresee as being the key developments in AI that will impact companies and professionals in the next 6 to 12 months? And I'd love to start with you, Elvis, if that's okay.
Yes, that's fine. I have some thoughts on this. Thanks for your question. It's a great question because I think right now is a really good time to think about, this technology. We have seen the transformation, how it's reaching different sectors and so on. And something really fascinating that has been happening is like, how to use these technologies for different applications, with personalization being one of the key areas of focus, right? So how do you personalize an experience? How do you personalize the responses from these models and so on? So that's an area I've been focusing on. I think that's going to be a key development moving forward, regardless if these models, are like multimodal models, which is combining different modalities and so on. So as we start to kind of improve these models, how can we, enable them to kind of perform tasks that are relevant, to the things that we do daily, whether it be like personal, tasks or whether it be professional tasks. So that's an area we are really focused on, and I'm really excited about that space.
Awesome. Logan, how about you? What do you think is coming next?
Yeah, there's so much stuff that's coming. I think, if I were to break it up on the near term horizon into like 3 different categories of things that are on the near term horizon, I think one of them is, Elvis mentioned, multimodal models. So moving beyond for these large language model systems, moving beyond just being able to handle like raw text in and raw text out. We've seen this with DALL-E now being integrated in ChatGPT. We've seen this with plugins, sort of extending the functionality of ChatGPT to go out and connect to different systems on the internet. I think that trend will continue. And I think the reality is, like, I was just giving a talk a couple of weeks ago and was reflecting before giving that talk. It's really incredible if you sit back and think about how much excitement there's been around generative AI systems. And like, if you really boil it down, like, they're just inputting and outputting text. Like, it's really not that like crazy. Like, there's a bunch of like useful use cases of inputting and outputting text, but it's thus far been like a very limited surface area where you can actually interact with these products. And I think that will change significantly with different modalities and systems being able to actually like go out and like connect to things that don't require you to like type in inputs directly to your computer. So I think that sort of like autonomous systems will get better. If folks are familiar with like AutoGPT or Baby AGI or any of those other like agent systems, I think a lot of those will just get more advanced over time, which I think will be super interesting. And like, the reality is you need those systems to be more reliable and robust in order for people to get value from it. And I think that takes me to the last point, which is, I think like just the foundational models themselves, like think GPT-4 and some of the other ones that are out there, are just going to continue to get like much better. Like I saw someone was tweeting the other day about how AI systems, like the conversation around like AI systems being like, today is the worst AI systems are ever going to be. Like, they are only going to get better from that. And I think it's crazy to think about that. Like, this is really like a lot of companies like really first shot at like a really, really large language model system. And you can imagine in like 2 years, like all the learnings that companies are going to have from deploying these systems, getting feedback from customers. So I'm really excited to see how that manifests in like core fundamental improvements on like the factualness and speed and reliability and all that good stuff.
Amazing. And Marilee, you've worked on so much throughout your career. What do you think is most exciting for you in the coming 6 to 12 months?
Well, first of all, I echo everything that Logan and Elvis said, but last week I was actually in SF at TED AI. It was the very first TED. It was focusing on AI, and I gave a talk there, which was mind-blowing. But Ilya Sutskever was there from OpenAI, and he actually said that the future is going to be AI systems training AI. So obviously, we're not going to be able to achieve that within the next 6 to 12 months, but I feel that we will start to envision, to dream, and to imagine what the future is going to look like. But, in the more short term, I think we will start to achieve more with less data. So as we go deeper in 2023, one of the most significant developments that I foresee is the refinement of AI's contextual understanding. So we will need less data and we'll be able to do more. Number two, productionizing these massive models is going to get easier and easier, and deploying them. And this is specifically crucial for product management, because typically the quality that you get when you're doing everything in an experimental server is pristine, and when you productionize, you obviously lose a lot of quality. But with the new developments with hardware and software solutions, I think that the drop of quality in experiences is going to be less. Last but not least, every company is exploring Gen AI, and I agree with Logan. Gen AI, first of all, is not new. Second of all, it's not the groundbreaking technology, right? So a lot of companies are exploring it with the data they have, but they're just exploring it. But within the next 6 to 12 months, I think they will all start creating native tools so that they can actually add value to the users with some experience that they'll bring together. And this is why I love being an AI product manager, because that's exactly what we do. We bridge the core AI research towards experiences that solve and have an impact to users.
Amazing. There's so much momentum around these topics, especially in the last couple of months. So I'm really excited to see all of this play out in the coming quarters ahead, extending into 2024. Staying with you, Marilee, one of the things that you talk about in your course with Maven is skill development, and what skills are going to be most relevant in this new era of AI. What skills do you recommend professionals focus on, especially acquiring over the next 1 to 2 years, to be prepared for an increasingly AI-driven workforce?
Yeah, this is a very good question, and exactly what I try to teach in my courses. So it's a combination of soft and hard skills. The most important one is for people to stop being overwhelmed by AI. You do not need a PhD in machine learning. You don't need to even know how to code in order to leverage AI into your day-to-day life, whether you're a PM or anything else. So the number one thing is to feel comfortable with the technology, to embrace it and understand the basics, just as it's going to be used within your own realm. Moreover, for soft skills, I do want people to be able to have more an experimental mindset. So just go in on anything it is you're working on and just think about, oh, what could I do with AI? How could I leverage this data? So this experimental nature, I think, is very important. Having a comfort working with AI, being able to train some models with no-code tools is nothing difficult, right? I have templates I give out to people. I find that when people train their first model, like a simple classifier that gets as an input, like leaves and tells you what kind of plant it comes from, after they do that, they really understand the day-to-day of research scientists and software engineers, and it really helps them. And then for hard skills, it's more about, having the technical influence to make trade-offs and have conversations that are deeply technical with engineers, and be able to inspire them to implement the visions that they have as product managers. One more thing. There's something called the MVQ. So in AI product management, we do have MVPs, which is the minimum viable product. But what's important is the MVQ, so the minimum viable quality you are going to get for an experience. So thinking about the user and bringing it in an AI and see how these two things fit, I think, is also very important. But yeah, very excited. There's a skill set that's hard to find, but definitely can be created regardless of background.
Wonderful. I appreciate that insight, Marilee. Logan, one of the things that has come up in my personal conversations is the end state of the org chart for a business. So as you can imagine, as more and more processes are automated with AI, the role of a manager sort of starts to change, and the conversations that managers should be having with their teams starts to become more and more relevant. In your perspective, how will the role of managers evolve throughout 2024, and what are the conversations that managers should be having with their teams about AI?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll caveat this by saying I'm probably not the domain expert. Like, I spend most of my time thinking about like how developers should be thinking about AI. So take my opinion with a grain of salt. But I do think that, like, if I had to take a step back and give advice to somebody who's in that position today, it's like, how can you influence your teams to get excited about integrating AI into their daily workflows? Like the reality is, and this has been a quote that's online all over the place, like AI is likely not going to be the thing that takes your job in the short to medium term. It's somebody else who's sort of augmenting their processes using AI. And it's an interesting perspective. I don't live in SF full time. I spend a bunch of time in SF, and a lot of people who I meet and talk to who don't live in the Bay Area oftentimes have the perspective of like they just don't know where to start using these tools. Like it's not completely evident, like you just show up in ChatGPT, like how is this thing going to help me do my job better or more effectively? And I think like managers, like the onus is on them in a lot of cases to be the person to like go out and read the Neuron, read other newsletters, like get that information themselves and then transmit to their teams and try to influence them to, again, augment their processes using AI. And I think like investing in great AI tools is also super important. Like, again, managers are the ones who are controlling like budgetary spend and things like that, focusing on like upskilling their teams, taking courses, classes, all that stuff. And at the end of the day, people are going to use these tools if they think that they're providing a lot of value. I just think that there's a lot of cases where like you just have to do some exploration and like some initial, like there's a lot of situations where you're not just like, it's not just going to completely solve the problem for you of whatever your job is. Like it's going to solve some access of it. And you have to do a little bit of the exploration yourself to figure out where those things are.
That completely resonates. And in my personal opinion, a lot of the conversations comes down to, well, just go try the thing. You know what I mean? Like there's no, as you said, there's no sort of like secret weapon to all of this. And there's no like ironed out blueprint to things. And I think there's a clear difference between some folks who look at something like ChatGPT, for example, and immediately just say, well, I'm just going to throw problems at it and then see if I can solve it. And then other folks who kind of just feel like frozen, like they're a little bit paralyzed by all the options out there, and just the willingness to go and click the button to just try the task is sort of a pretty big predictor of whether or not they're able to start implementing AI every day. So the points that you're making definitely resonate. Elvis, coming to you, how can leaders start to think about preparing their teams now to take advantage of AI capabilities that are sort of on the horizon for 2024? Some of the ones that we've talked about previously in the session so far.
Yes, thanks for that. That's a good question as well. And I'll probably be amplifying a lot of what my colleagues mentioned here, Logan and Marley. I think they offer really great advice in terms of, figure out how to start exploring. I think exploring is really key here. Also not getting overwhelmed. I think, there's a lot of developments. Yes, it feels like everything is new. A lot of this technology, in my opinion, is not, I would say not relatively new. So there's that first, right? There's the trying to not feel that fear of that you're missing out and so on. That's a good first step. So I think for leaders, in my opinion, and I've worked with a couple of teams that I've consulted with, technical teams, non-technical teams as well, think about enablement. I think enablement has been something that has been kind of abandoned in a bit from my experience in companies, especially with all these like AI developments. It's really hard to know, what to enable, your people with, what to enable, developers with, and so on. So enablement, I think, is really key. I would say, start again with exploring. That's a good first step. Trying to figure out what is the type of curriculum that you want to enable inside your companies, and actually offering those opportunities, for your people. I think that's really important. Being able to give those opportunities and seek out those opportunities as well, for people to to think more deeply on how to apply this technology inside these companies. So I like one keyword that Logan mentioned, which is this idea of augmenting. So a lot of people have views that AI, is here to replace, but that has been, something that people has debated for so long. In my opinion, I think it's more about thinking how you want to augment skills. Tools like ChatGPT, I think, are good examples of, thinking about how to solve problems and how to augment those skills. So enablement, combined with thinking more deeply about how to augment specific skills, whether it be coding, whether it be like putting together one-pagers for improving communication within companies, all of these things, right? And this technology is really capable of doing and helping out in these areas. So I would say those are kind of my thoughts in terms of how to prepare best.
Awesome. Let's go over to the Q&A and see some of the questions that the audience has submitted. So this is one I found interesting. I'm seeking guidance on how to navigate the challenges posed by Fortune 500 companies and the rigid tech stacks and reluctance towards implementing AI solutions. Any insights or strategies would be greatly appreciated. Anyone have any insights here? Maybe Marilee or Logan, anything that you have noticed?
Logan, why didn't you start? Need to think about this.
It's a good question. I think part of my pitch to Fortune 500 companies would likely be that like there's all this excitement today that they need to be, and this is clearly where the sort of tech industry is going. Like if you look at if you look at like a sampling of companies from like their public investor disclosures or like their board meeting minutes where they're talking about AI, it's like every big company is talking about AI. So you have to go and make these investments today in at least exploring and like prototyping a bunch of these things. I also think that Fortune 500 companies are likely in the advantageous position in the sense that like they essentially just can throw money at a lot of these problems. Like you can go and hire consultants to help you do this. You can go and, work with, Microsoft and figure this stuff out. Like there's a lot of opportunities for Fortune 500 companies. I actually think they have it the easiest. I think it's a lot more difficult, I think, for smaller companies who perhaps like don't have the technical know-how to integrate this technology. Again, at the end of the day, you have to go and show them like what's the value add for them, understanding what their products and services are, show them how AI can augment that and make it better. And I also think like pointing to the consumer excitement about AI is could be another great approach.
My 2 cents are this expression, which is adapt or face extinction. So if there is a company that kind of resists, show them the example of Blockbuster and Netflix. I don't know if you know the story, but super quick. Blockbuster, they had the stores where you could actually walk and rent a tape, take it home, watch it, pay per day, bring it back. And then this little startup called Netflix came up and said, hey, instead of having people go in a physical store to do this, we'll just ship tapes to them. Blockbuster said, no, we don't care about that. They love the experience coming in. And of course, Netflix is like, okay, not only will I send the tapes, but I'll create a little streaming service. And of course, Blockbuster said, oh, wait, everyone, we can do the same. And of course, it was too late. They died. And now Netflix produced and developed a documentary on the death of Blockbuster. So if someone is resistant, try to convince them. This is what we do as AI product managers. We're like, here's why we need to do it. We need to stay ahead of the curve. Here's what the competitors are doing. A great proposal is for them to fund an R&D department within the company just to explore the opportunity, try a couple of things, run a couple of experiments. But please, it's up to us to really advocate for AI because it is the future and because we don't want to be the next Blockbuster. So.
Thanks for that. I have a very fun question for us, which is, what is the most unexpected use case you have found for AI this year? Elvis, anything that has come across your desk that is unexpected in your book?
Yeah, that's a very good question as well. Loving the questions. Yeah, in terms of, something that surprised me, I think, is these like self capabilities, like, self-reflection, self-verification. I've even seen some work on like self-debugging, these systems able to kind of, make corrections as they make predictions. I think that's really fascinating. That's unexpected to me because the way I understand language models and how they work and how they're trained, it's not intuitive. It's not something I expect as a capability. And we have a lot of these type of capabilities that the research community is really working on to better understand how these systems work and how to better steer and control them. So that I would say is fascinating, and it's fascinating because a lot of the work that we do, for instance, like in prompt engineering, right? This is something I teach in my course. A lot of it is a lot of manual work, like how to steer the model to give you more like reliable responses and so on. And I think the promise of these like capabilities, as I was saying, like self-verification and so on, is that the model can make correction as it goes, making those predictions. And I think if that's a capability that these technologies like language models will have, I think it will fix a lot of issues related to like factuality, trustworthiness, and so on. So there's a lot of potential there. But again, this is a very, I would say, early stage in terms of like a research domain.
Awesome. Let's continue on with the questions, and we'll come back to the Q&A for another session at the very end. Elvis, maybe staying with you, as an AI scientist, you gave us a little bit of a preview of what you're expecting to come into fuller maturity in 2024. Could you outline some of the challenges that you think will become the most sort of top of mind challenges for the community to think about over the next year?
Yes. Something I advocate for a lot, and I think it's really important to call out here as we make recommendations, as leaders in this space, is responsible AI. I think, you can break that down however you want in different industries and companies. But there are all these ideas like of privacy, safety, trustworthiness, all these different topics, right? So all of these, I would say, fall under responsible AI. So not only thinking about how to apply these technologies, because we know they're very capable, but also how to apply it in a responsible way. I think that's a responsibility all of us should have as we continue exploring, not only companies that build out this technology, but also companies that are trying to adopt this technology in whatever application they're building, whether it be HR recruiting, whether it be coding, whatever that application may be. Just thinking deeply about how to make these systems safer. And I know there's a lot of focus on that in terms of like AI regulation and so on. But that's kind of, I think right now there is a lot of focus on building these tools out, building these like guidelines on how to better use these technologies. So there's a lot of conversation happening, and I'm really excited about that and how that develops.
That's great. Elvis, you also wrote one of the most definitive guides on prompt engineering. It's a fantastic resource. How do you see the changing capabilities into 2024 impacting the role and work of an engineer or product teams at large?
Yes. So I think for this one, I need to provide some context. I think for the prompt engineering guide, for me, it was all about, how do I help enable and make this technology more accessible? So playing a part in education, right? How do people use these large language models more responsibly as well, right? There's a lot of conversation about that, a discussion about that in the guide. But yeah, I believe like thinking also, as I said, more deeply about the trustworthiness side of it, the safety side of it as well. That's really important. And there's a lot of efforts like red teaming, for instance, where anyone can be involved in that. I mean, I've worked with companies where we have managed to put kind of safety guardrails and work closely with the people that are actually on the front lines, people that are doing, for instance, like recruiting. They have so much insight, and that domain specific insight is something that we should think about how to incorporate into any of the applications that we're building. And that was kind of the idea and the premise behind the prompting guide, how to think deeply about how we can involve more people into that conversation. And so that's kind of one of my big asks, I would say, from and takeaways from from this conversation that we're having here today.
Awesome. Logan, OpenAI has been at the forefront of generative AI with GPT-4, DALL-E 3. It seems like there's always a big headline coming from OpenAI every few months. Where do you see the biggest opportunities for impact?
Yeah, one huge shout out to our incredible research team that makes it all possible. I think there's it's an incredibly small team for like the disproportionate impact that they have. There's a lot of folks who help take the research ideas and get them into production, but the actual folks doing the research is a small group of people. So they're a huge disproportionate impact on society for how small of a group it is. But I tweeted the other day that it's never been, there's never been a better time in history to be a developer than today. And I think if you take a step back, you can actually say that for a lot of different fields. Like I don't think there's ever been a better time in human history to like be a college student, to be honest with you. Like I'm thinking about myself freshman year of college, learning how to program in C++ and like really banging my head against the wall and like not having a great time and thinking like computer science kind of sucks. Like this isn't very fun. Like I don't want to do this. And thinking about how students now have access to these incredible tools to really personalize that impact for them. And I think that's the interesting opportunity that I think exists. Like I think ChatGPT as a tool today is going to continue to do a really great job of being like a general solution for like a super wide range of problems. I think what will likely have a tremendous impact like in very specialized domains are things like what Khan Academy has done with Khan Mingo. So like using our technology, using GPT-4 to build a system that really helps like drill in on the problem of helping students and not like directly giving them the answers, which I think at the end of the day is like ChatGPT really wants to give you the answer to the question that you ask it. So it's not very good at like, unless you ask it to, like guiding you along that process. And I think there's just a little bit of learning that, for example, like students have to do in order to better use these systems, or use tools like Khan Mingo that out of the box work really well. Yeah, so I'm super excited. I imagine that like 12 months from now, the penetration of AI is like, I still think if you're using AI like on a daily or weekly basis today, you're probably still on like somewhat of the cutting edge. I think in a year from now, that's not going to be the case anymore. I think it's like most people will be doing it, hopefully because it's providing them a tremendous amount of value. Like I think at the end of the day, it's like the reason you're using these AI tools is because they're useful and they're making your life better in some way. And I think the only way that happens if like all the companies that are building in this space go and deliver on that mission.
Staying with the 1 year later frame, let's imagine it is October 25th, 2024 now. You gave us a little bit of a sense of what you expect the sort of major areas of capabilities developing in the next year. Could you, if I were to push you to get a little bit more concrete on where these models are going to be, what they're actually going to be able to accomplish by this time next year, what would you say? What do you think is on the horizon for these models?
It's hard to make the prediction intelligently because I think there's like a bunch of non-linear trends that happen in AI. My gut instinct is that the today really, if you look at the nitty-gritty details, there's like probably only a handful of use cases where I think these models like do a really incredible world-class job. I think like programming is one of those. Like if you're a software engineer or somebody developing, like it is incredibly valuable to use one of these tools. I think if you're somebody doing like copywriting type work, like incredibly valuable to use one of these tools. I think I would imagine by next year, the number of different spaces where this is the case is just like much higher. Like I think it's going to be the case for pretty much everyone, hopefully. Yeah, I don't know if that's much more specific, but that's my guess.
Yeah, it's probably the best that you can give at this point, frankly. Marilee, coming to you, Meta is so deeply involved in AI research and products and has such a wide surface area to cover where you could see so many different ways where Meta can work in AI into its experiences. What can you just give us one or two practical ways that you see AI shaping social connections and social experiences by and through 2024?
Yeah, of course. So I was a part of a team called Avatars and Identity, and we focused on the embodied version of ourselves within the metaverse. So the work there has been groundbreaking. I don't know if people have watched this, but there was a podcast with Lex Friedman and Mark Zuckerberg where they talked in the metaverse as photorealistic avatars. So that was the project I worked on. And that digital representation is going to be groundbreaking. So similar to Black Mirror type of shows, we'll be able to put these headsets on and see each other just like you're looking at me right now. And this is groundbreaking. It leverages AI, of course. I don't know how long it's going to take to go out in the public, but the future of expressive embodiment is just fascinating, and it's powered with AI. Now, taking this one step further and imagining that you're going to have like an avatar that is going to represent Gen AI. So imagine you can actually summon an avatar that is essentially a ChatGPT that can talk to you and answer questions there in the 3D space you're at. I think that is what completely blows my mind. It's like computer games where you have an NPC that, you know, gives you information about the games and the quests. But imagine if you can ask any question and they can make the experience completely immersive and genuine. So I'm very excited about virtual reality, and AI plays a huge role in it.
Super cool. Super cool. One of the things you talk a lot about is the role of PMs and just how to be a good PM in this new age, and especially in this new technology area. How do you see the role of PMs and product teams changing with the developments of AI?
Yeah, and this is a very good question. A lot of people tell me, hey, is my role going to be replaced with AI? And I say, PMs that leverage AI will replace PMs that do not leverage AI. I use Gen AI, I use ChatGPT to help me generate ideas, to help me come up with user personas, to help me create a little MVP, create the code I need to prototype something, create my PRD for my teams. And even further, just help me prioritize. It literally generates a table by using like a prioritization framework called RICE that I can literally take, paste it in my PRD, and I much time of my life that I can spend in other things more strategically. So it's the role is changing in the sense that we need to learn the new tools. We need to define the new tools. We need to start creating content so that other people can get help, because these are so new. Like not a lot of people know how to do it. This is exactly why I decided to teach this course. And it all comes down to product managers moving away from, you know, creativity and being inspiration product managers towards product managers that embrace experimentation, exploration, that have a genuine interest in curiosity. So I think curiosity is going to be key. The other thing is we do need to learn how to work with ambiguity. And, you know, if our team lead comes to us and says, hey, I think we should explore this area, we should be able to say, okay, I'm going to break it down. I'm going to create some experiments. I'm going to figure out what to do and how to make hypotheses as to what the problem I should be solving is, versus generic product management where you already know kind of the idea in the space. But yeah, I'm so excited about this, and I really need everyone to embrace AI and empower their current career with it.
Awesome. Elvis, I have a question for you from Jules in the audience. What happens when we have exhausted all the data available for us to train foundational models? Something that Sam Altman commented, that there will be a plateau when we exhausted all the public data. Do you have any thoughts on this question?
Yeah, I love the data question. I have a lot of experience with data engineering, and I've helped a lot of teams with putting together data sets. In fact, for training some of these large language models, actually. But I think there are a couple of things I want to talk about this. The figuring out how to collect good data to keep improving these systems is something a lot of companies really have to spend a lot of time on figuring out. Right, this is what's sort of referred to as the data flywheel. The first step is you have a technology, right, that works and your users really like it, but making sure that you're collecting that contextual data of how people interact with your systems, that's not easy to do. So that's the first thing in terms of like the product side of things. But for training these models, my opinion about this is I would hope that we maybe focus a lot more on models that don't rely too much on large data, because I think this type of the data that we train these models on is, it's scarce, and there's also a lot of issues with licensing and so on. And so I would say, we have seen some developments like in the open source space, trying to make these models, less reliant on all this big data set, these big data sets, and that's good. How to better contextualize these models as well, like, the retrieval augmented generation. People have really figured out how to combine these language models with external tools. Maybe that could be an alternative that we have, because inside these companies we have these massive data sets, but we don't know how to leverage them properly. So what I'm trying to say is thinking also about how to use what we have today, right, and optimize the use of that, right? All of us don't really need to think about training a foundational model within these companies. There are companies that have expertise for that, that have researchers and so on. But this is what I would say, like, think deeply, inside these companies. You have a lot of data sitting around. Use some of these approaches like RAGs to, complement language models, these foundational models that we have. And then what I'm seeing as well as a trend, just to kind of add to this, is like these open source models are also getting more capable, right? You can do more with them. And so, as Marilee shared before, like, experiment, right? Exploring with these open source models is also, I think, a good strategy as well going forward.
Awesome. We have another question from Ryan. For PM leaders and ICs looking to join AI-focused companies or organizations within existing companies, how would you separate fads or use the language AI applications without any competitive moats, or what I might deem as more short-term opportunity applications from AI applications with real sustainable growth potential? If you yourself were looking for such roles, what factors would you take into consideration? Marilee, any thoughts on this one?
Very interesting. Almost all companies now are hiring for an AI PM or a generative AI PM. Now, if that company is perfectly positioned to thrive in this ecosystem, I would say go for it, but you need to use your critical thinking. Example, Pinterest was creating an entire org of Gen AI. They were hiring the director, group product manager, ICs. Pinterest is the perfect use case, right? So far on Pinterest, you go there, you type ideas for home with a wooden table. Well, you'll be able to generate all these things immediately, right? So you know that something like that is perfectly suited. It has the fundamentals for a use case that's there. Adobe, another incredible use case, right? They made, with the opportunities, they already have a clientele. They have designers that pay a subscription for the products. And now they say, hey, if a client comes to you and they say, I want an invitation for a kid's party that has a bear that plays soccer, you can literally generate that, put it in a little template for an invite, tweak it a bit, boom, you're done. So any company that you feel can fulfill a feature that ticks the box of user desirability, viability from a market perspective, are people going to pay for this? Like, is this something that you'll generate money from? And then number 3, that is feasible from a tech perspective, then I think these 3 are going to guide you towards the right company. But yeah, don't just go for the sake of becoming an AI PM. Go because you believe the company will thrive within this new AI realm.
Perfect. Logan, there's a great question for you here. So Daniel asks, what is the biggest mistake that people make in using generative AI today? I'm sure you've seen so many different use cases and implementations and customers and prospects sort of, hitting the OpenAI phone, trying to explore generative AI. Any reactions to that question from your perspective, Logan?
A good question. I think there's a lot of pressure right now for product teams to like go and build something with AI and get it out in people's hands. I think, and maybe this actually doesn't generalize to the whole public. Maybe this is just my personal opinion, but I think this maybe will generalize over time, that as people spend more time using AI and using all these tools and features, I think people will genuinely get a little bit of fatigue from some of these systems where it doesn't, it's maybe like adding some chat layer on top of some existing, database that you have, but isn't done in a way that like the product experience actually ends up being like a huge degree better. And I just think like that's over time going to make a lot of consumers like choose to like not be excited about certain products and features. So I would say for people building today, like actually go and think about the problem from first principles, and don't just add a chat layer because like you think that it's you know what everyone's doing right now, and actually isn't the best way to like, there's ways that you could leverage this technology that don't revolve around like specifically chatting with something. And I've just seen like a lot of problem spaces where if you take a step back, there's like a much different approach that you could take, that doesn't end up in that type of like user facing chat interface, that could still leverage this large language model AI technology to like solve the problem for people. But again, there's that pressure to like, you want to ship something, you want to get something into your users' hands. And I understand that pressure, but it's, yeah, sometimes the best solution just requires that you go and build something that's a little bit more technically deep of a solution.
Yeah, interesting. It feels like there's I'm just trying to like piece together everything that we've talked about today, and it kind of feels like there is there's definitely a fine line between using all of the consumer level attention that we talked about at the very beginning of this hour, to build the case for you know, as one component for building a case for exploring generative AI, but not just saying just do the thing that got people's attention, if you know what I mean. So it kind of feels like there's a bit of a challenge there of finding the exact right framing, to get people excited, but then also go through the steps of doing the right product thinking to come out with the right sort of implementation for a certain problem. Is that right?
Yeah, and I think this goes back to like why you need great PMs to like think about how to solve these problems. Like at the end of the day, like if you just like scrap together something like and it doesn't actually solve the real problem that consumers have, like you're just not going to end up, like you're not going to get the traction from them, you're not going to get the long-term buy-in from your leadership to like actually go and build these systems. But it's just hard. Like I can empathize with people who are in that situation of like, you know, their management's like, we need AI features, like let's ship stuff this week. Like it's just hard to deal with that pressure, I'm sure. So yeah, I don't know, send them the recording from this video or something like that, and try to convince them that you need to spend a little bit more time building.
Awesome. One of the things that we talked about, and I think a couple of you had mentioned this, and I've forgotten who at this point, was talking about how you know, AI systems training AI, other AI systems. Can we talk about that a little bit more? This is a question from Robert in the audience. I forgot who brought it up. Maybe I think it was Marilee that brought it up first. Any sort of deeper exploration of this topic?
Let's imagine computer games, right? I'm a gamer. I love it. You know, you go to places like Minecraft and, you know, you can create a world. Now imagine having, you know, a game that can generate worlds for you, and that it can actually generate people in these worlds that is like a Sims. Okay, so imagine something that can generate experiences after experiences, and that within this world you have like an ecosystem of agents interacting with each other and forming relationships and talking and creating a little community. So this has a lot of AIs interacting with each other, and models that can create and generate other models. I mean, I don't know if this is an unfortunate example or not, but it's just very, very interesting to see that in the future, you may not need human input in order to generate something. So maybe AI will tell you, hey, I will create a game that can do X, Y, Z, and I'm going to do all the training, I'm going to do everything, and here it is, I'm done. So it's kind of removing ourselves from the equation, and having AI do the creativity and the thinking. And I do want to address some, like a common theme I see in the comments where people are like, well, great, this is cool, but there's human intuition, there's human judgment, there's a human heart and passion. We will not be able to replace that, okay? Gen AI and AI is giving us a head start so that we can actually put our cognitive load to smarter things, but they will never be able to replace, until now, the human intuition, gut feeling. So, but yeah, it's so interesting. AI, training AI, I think there's a lot to see there, and I can't wait to see what the future entails.
Yeah, same. Elvis, one of the questions here, I'm trying to find it. Along those lines, it was asking about the future of prompt engineering. I'm curious your thoughts on this. There's, I think throughout 2023, there was a bit of a back and forth, especially on the likes of Twitter, et cetera, about the future of prompt engineering. What do you think that looks like from your perspective?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's a lot of debate around this. I mean, I regularly have to be answering questions about this in my course as well as online. As you know, I have a huge presence online as well. And I love this question. I try to always talk from my experience. I think for prompt engineering, there's still a lot more that we can do. In terms of how to better steer these models and how to make them more reliable. And this also is aligned with something I mentioned earlier, and I think everyone in this panel also talked about, is this idea of trying to create these safer systems and trying to augment the systems better, providing more context. So how are we going to provide this context? Is it going to be another AI system? Potentially, maybe, in the future, yes. But if you want to enrich models with better context, because I think it's all about that today, where we're at, we need these techniques, right? So it's also about thinking deeply about, what kind of tools you want, what are the prompts that you need to put in place to get the results that you want. So the better the prompts are, the deeper, you go with the prompts, the richer and more relevant that context is, the better the results are. So that has been kind of my experience from experimenting and building tools with language models. So because of that, I think there's still a lot to explore. I don't think it's going away anytime soon. There's no indication to me right now at this point that these systems can't, for instance, optimize prompts on their own. There have been a couple of papers from DeepMind and so on where they explore that optimization process automatically with AI. But so far, these are just ideas, and we still have, I think, a long way to go. And I always say in my courses, it's very early days. This is the reason I'm teaching about this particular skill, because not only is it useful for researchers, but also useful for people that want to explore with these language models. So that's kind of my thoughts.
Man, it is early days, but I don't know if anyone's feeling this, but I'm a little tired. I will say that. I'm going to be taking long naps during the Thanksgiving and holiday breaks this year. We're up on time. Thank you so much for the time and answering the questions and exploring a wide range of topics. Clearly, you have all three of you have thought so much about the future of AI and have built on your previous experiences in the field. And thank you so much for the audience for participating. Rachel, I'm going to toss it back to you to help us close out here.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Before you leave, this is a Maven event, and we run hundreds of courses led by instructors like Marilee and Elvis. And it's a Maven tradition to share out your light bulb moment. So put in the chat, what was your light bulb moment? So an insight that's just going to stick with you for a while. And I'll ask the panelists the same question as well. So put in the chat, what was your light bulb moment from today? And let's see everyone's thoughts. Nice. The panelists, I'd love to hear from you on what yours was. Anything from Logan?
I don't mean my light bulb moment in a confrontational way to Elvis's comment about prompt engineering, but I think I need to do a better job of convincing people that prompt engineering will go away eventually, sometime in the short to medium term. I think it's just an artifact of the current systems that will go away. But that's we'll have our debate somewhere else.
I'll see you on the Twitter threads later today.
Yeah, we'll see a Twitter battle on that. Marilee, how about you? Light bulb moment.
I mean, I think my light bulb moment is that I said, from TED.ai last week that AI will train AI, but how everyone is typing AI, training AI. So in a way, I was like someone passing on the message, taking myself off the equation, and then people just kept repeating that. So my light bulb is that, something so impactful is just resonating with people. And which is exactly why the future of AI is so fascinating, because AI will train AI in the future. So I love everyone's just saying that. So it's super cool.
How about you, Elvis?
Yeah, I think my takeaway is like thinking deeply and doing deeper exploration. I think that ultimately will lead to better decision making in terms of what you adapt, how you adapt this technology. Not feeling overwhelmed about all the race that's happening and all the developments. I think it's just trying to figure out a way how to enable people within your companies and enable friends and your communities. And always have a mind for curiosity and deeper thinking. So
love it. Love those light bulb moments and everyone's amazing light bulb moments in the chat. So final plug. As a reminder, maven.com has tons of popular AI courses to check out. We'll send you some recommendations after this event, along with the recording. So don't worry if you missed out on some parts. But for now, I'm going to leave you with the fun outro song, and thank you all for joining us.